Hey y'all, Trisha with Homesteading from Scratch, and today I'm going to show you a simpler way to make patchwork panels. So the method that I'm using is strip piecing, and I'm going to show you an easy way to make some more complex looking smaller patchwork projects. You can make quilt blocks out of it, or you can make some fun little guys. See this goose? I will link the pattern below. I got the pattern off of Etsy. So this is what I'm working on. I've been making some stuffed animals out of patchwork, and this guy's already sold and he's going to his new home tomorrow. So I'm going to show you a few things on how you can make these patchwork panels faster and simpler. So what I'm using for this particular project is 2.5 inch strips. So to make it simpler for myself, I bought some jelly rolls. This guy is not made out of a jelly roll. That was just some scraps that I had, but we're going to use 2.5 inch strips. So I bought some jelly rolls, and you'll also need a rotary cutter, a cutting mat, and a ruler, and obviously a sewing machine. So I'm going to show you an easier way to go about doing this that's going to save you a ton of time. So the first thing you're going to do is choose some fabric pieces that you like. I like to alternate dark and light colors because I feel like it gives a good contrast. And after you've chosen your strips, you're going to sew them together side by side. Make sure you're paying very close attention to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After you get all of your strips sewn, you're going to have this beautiful rectangle. Now I like to flip mine over and give it a good press because I feel like it really gives you a good opportunity to make sure everything is flat and even. Now this is where the magic happens. We're going to take our rectangle and sew our 2 long ends together, and we're going to end up with this tube. Next, you're going to take your rotary cutter and your ruler, and you're going to make sure you've got a nice even edge there. And after that's done, you're going to cut this into 2.5 inch strips. Now you're going to have these cool little tubes. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab your seam ripper and you're going to rip out one of the seams and then lay it flat, and that's going to be your first strip. Quick tip, my favorite method is just to rip out about every 3rd or 4th stitch, and the rest of it should come out pretty easy. Now I wanted more of a pattern to mine, so what I did was I chose the next set, and that's where I ripped my seams. But if you want just scrappy looking without a pattern, you don't have to follow any specific order. You're just going to alternate which seams you choose to rip out in order to vary your color of squares that end up next to one another. So now I'm going to choose the seam between the dark and the light green, and so on and so forth. You can see here that doing it in that order will give you this diagonal pattern with your patchwork. I'm going to slow it down a bit to show you what I mean. So this is my first strip, and the yellow is at the top, but the next strip I want the yellow to be at the bottom. So I'm going to rip the seam between the yellow and the dark green next. And now the yellow is at the bottom and the green is at the top. So next I want my green to be at the bottom, and so I'm going to rip the seam between the green and the pink. And voila! So you can see how the diagonal pattern is beginning to develop, so I'm going to keep going with this pattern to create that diagonal effect. Next, you're going to sew the strips together. I like to iron my seams in opposite directions so they are nested, because that really helps me to make sure that when I'm sewing, my corners match up perfectly. And then you're going to end up with this beautiful patchwork panel. Now, I like to press my seams down so that way whenever I'm cutting, I can make sure everything is nice and flat. This technique has a wide variety of uses. I am excited to use it on small scale projects, but also I make patchwork clothing, and so I'm really excited to use this technique on a larger scale for some of the clothing items that I make. Make sure you check out my Etsy page for some of these items and even more. I hope this helped, and I can't wait to see what everyone makes.